Well, let me get straightened up here a little bit. Well, the light's funky. Well, it's 9 o'clock. As the clock on the wall states, it's, I think everything's set here, isn't it? See if I can get anybody jumping in here. Yeah, we're getting a couple popping in. Hey, Chris, how are you? Yeah, I had a person fall asleep and run into the rear end of one of my trucks uh, Friday morning, early Friday morning, about 4:30 in the morning. So yeah, I've had a eventful week. I had a few things going on this week. I had to kind of change up some personnel and a few things like that. Uh, so yeah, we've had an eventful week. Been busy as usual, and that's a good thing. I mean, I like staying busy. Hey, comfortable man. Yeah, yeah, we're doing pretty good out here. I hope the pitcher's coming in good and strong for everybody. Just trying to sit back and relax here on a Sunday morning. Yeah, I bet so. Yeah, this guy was a photographer. I don't know if he was a photographer with one of the news stations or newspaper. I couldn't remember. I know my driver got out of the truck and ran back to where he was at because his car caught on fire. Hey, Ponka, how are you this morning? Uh, and the car caught on fire, and my driver had to pull away right quick because, and it just jerked the bumper and everything else out of the way. And he wasn't injured, thank goodness. I don't think. I don't think he had to be taken off, but it shook him up pretty good. But he jumped out of his car, and the car was catching on fire, and my driver was back there, and he said, "Oh no, my camera's in the car." And he said, "Son, you better leave that alone." And that car burst into flames, and uh, it burnt the car up pretty good, I think, from what I gather. But yeah, the guy started to try to jump back in the car to get his camera out. He said, "Insurance will get you a new camera." He said, "But you get killed trying to get back in that car." But that's the way it goes sometimes. But he said he just fell asleep, and my driver was running 65 miles an hour down the road. He's running 65 and then gets rear-ended, and he said he got hit. He said it pushed him pretty bad. It pushed him hard. He said it was a pretty good jolt when it hit his tractor trailer. Of course, it didn't do any damage at all to the truck. Basically, with when you hit a rear end of a tractor trailer truck, you're going to tear that car all to pieces. But you very very rarely do anything to the truck. That big bumper on the back and everything, it's pretty stout. It's made out of some pretty heavy metal. Yeah, yeah, we had a fire extinguisher, but you're when it blazes up huge, you're not going to be able to extinguish a huge car fire. I mean, we carry the pretty good sized fire extinguisher, but uh, you're not going to. I had one of my trucks. Well, I've had two. I've had two truck fires, and my guys basically just had to get away from it because once it hits a huge amount of fuel and everything, you can't. Uh, I mean, that's like peeing in the ocean with one of these fire extinguishers. A fire extinguisher usually on those trucks is for a minor fire. If it gets past minor on one of these trucks, that truck's usually gone. Yeah, it's you know, I've had I've had two that have caught on fire on the trucks, and one of them because it blew a turbo and dropped the oil and everything down into the exhaust system, and the boy saw that it was flaming up, and then the other one was a wiring issue, and it got up under the dash, and then once it got so when oxygen hit it, the boy opened the door, it just blazed up something terrible on that. Yeah, you'd be surprised how quick some of these fires will just engulf everything. Yeah, it's a you'd really be surprised how quickly that some of that can just overtake something and just you know I don't know it's I don't mess with fires. Fire is a scary thing. I mean, the best thing to do for a fire is just back off, let the fire departments get a hold of something like that, and not do anything. Basically, my driver, when that happened, he pulled the of course we saw there wasn't any damage to the tractor trailer, so we pulled up about. He jumped in the truck and pulled the truck away about. Uh, he said about 100 yards away, so the fire trucks could get in there and everything else, and basically see what happened. Yeah, so my guy, no, 100% not his fault. He was, I mean, our cameras show the impact and everything. I mean, he's going down the road 65 miles an hour, straight as he could be on I-77, and straight as he could be, 4:30 in the morning, and all of a sudden boom, he gets a big jolt from the rear, and the guy admitted it too. He said he fell asleep, so it was it's a cut and dry type situation. It's not a. I'm trying to get my lights. I got lights overhead and in the back of it. Sort of overcast down here today, so I'm not getting a lot of light into the situation. But yeah, we've had a ton of rain the past couple of days down here. I mean, I think we've had close to 5 or 6 inches of rain the past 2 days. It's been a lot. Overnight, it was really putting it down too. Yeah, I mean, you kind of look at it a couple different ways. Yeah, he hit the back of the semi, but he could have. He was right at the Catawba River Bridge, and that guy could have just gone off into the river. He could have done several different things. So, or hit somebody else and damaged somebody else, or killed somebody else. That would have been the bad thing. Somebody like that, and he had to be doing more than 65 miles an hour because my truck is geared, governed to 65, and so that's all we were doing. And you figure the guy was probably doing 70 miles an hour probably, and he was coming up on had he, I mean, he could have gone off into the Catawba River and drowned or whatever too. You never know if he was headed wrong, but he was right at the Catawba River Bridge down in Rock Hill, between Rock Hill and Fort Mill, South Carolina. So that's where he was at, and he was headed down to Savannah, and just the guy, just like I said, my guy wasn't 30 minutes into his trip. He had just left Charlotte Terminal and gotten down there and called me, like I said, about 4:30, and that's the way it was. Yeah, I was looking at some of the stuff in Arkansas and everything too. We're getting some of that rain that was going through Arkansas right now. They're talking about it raining here up until Wednesday, I think. So we're getting the backside of some of that rain. Hopefully the mountains knocked off some of the intensity. But we've had some pretty healthy rains the past couple of days. It rained out all the graduation ceremonies. They all had to be brought back inside and everything else around here in this area. Every school that I know of had to move their outside graduations to the inside yesterday. So that changed a lot of the area. This light keeps going up and down here. I don't know what, I guess the sensors in here seeing. I'm not trying to move that much to get it messed up. I hope my picture's coming through loud and clear and my voice and everything. I guess I can get a thumbs up from somebody if it's doing all right. Hopefully the signal's good. I never know sometimes till I see the replay of it or whatever, how good it comes through. I mean, on my end, it looks great. It's excellent. Okay, good. Okay, good. Thank you, Ponca. Thank you, Chris. Good, good, good. I like for it to be a decent thing. And then I'll ask Alexa over here. Alexa, weather. See what she says.
In Cherryville, there's a flash flood watch in effect until Sunday, June 9th, 8 p.m. The current weather is 72 degrees Fahrenheit with cloudy skies. Today's forecast has thunderstorms with a high of 78 degrees and a low of 69 degrees.
Well, there you heard the forecast. Flash flood warnings. Yeah, because all the creeks, my pond right behind me here is just all the way out to its banks, and then the overflow. It's going over the overflow pretty good right now. So yeah, we're okay. So you're interviewing for a job at Central Transport tomorrow. What location comfortable, man? Yeah, I might have to get a boat out. Yeah, it's like I said, it's getting pretty deep out there. The pond's is about as high as we ever see it right now. I'd say, yeah, it's just looking at it from behind me there. It's pretty far up on the bank. Oh, so you're down there in Norcross, Georgia, are you? Okay. And yeah, well yeah, I don't want the creek to rise anymore. I actually got two creeks that feed this pond right here behind me. Yeah, so I don't want either one of these creeks to rise. Yeah, of course I set up on a hill, so I'm not prone to we had to kind of walk down the hill to the pond. So it's not like we're in a flat land where it's going to rise so much and get up to my house or anything. If it gets up to my house, it's really deep. I can tell you that we're in trouble. It'll be over the dam before it does that. My dam wouldn't hold it if it got that high, so I'm not really going to worry about it. We had the dam to break about 40. Well, let me see how about 48 years ago. Right, my wife and I, well, we're still living in a mobile home at that time. I had a mobile home. We just first got married, and we hadn't built down here right here next to the pond. And oh yeah, my shop. And that's what I was going to tell you. That's where my mobile home. That's where I got my first lot. My father-in-law gave us a lot up there on the road, and that's where I had my mobile home. And eventually that's where I built my first shop too. After we built the house and everything else, we no longer had that mobile home and all that. And I took that land, and that's where I built my first shop. And that worked out real handy. I'm still trying to get this light. I hope it's not bothering y'all. It's kind of seems getting darker and lighter. I don't have any stage lights here. I just got the normal lamps and the lack of sunshine coming in and everything. I guess it's just picking up on different sensors. Okay, the picture's good. Okay, well it looks like it's getting darker and lighter to me a little bit. I may be wrong. I'll set up here closer to the lamp a little bit. Maybe it won't. I'll turn it. Well, I don't believe I helped any by doing that. Yeah, that's what it seems to be doing. It must be something with the light sensor on the camera on here that it flips back and forth. I guess whatever movement you get. Yeah, yeah, I guess. Yeah, yeah. It's amazing how quickly we forget about the way technology was. I was thinking the other day, just in my lifetime, I've seen so many technological changes. I mean, we didn't have computer when I graduated high school. Of course, we didn't have home computers. We didn't have the one computer when I went to community college back in 1969. So 50 years ago, when I started college, we uh, we had one computer, or actually a computer terminal. Let me rephrase that we went in. It was in a closet down at Gaston College, and we would go in there and we would type on the computer terminal, and it would send that data via modem over to either Research Triangle Park in Chapel Hill or over to UNC Charlotte, and then it would translate the data and then give us a readout back to see if we did our coding right. I mean, and you were doing coding, and that's it was really it, and you're talking about just a few lines of coding. In other words, you were just typing in a few things to make it say a word on the computer. We didn't have a computer screen. We had a computer, basically it was a paper terminal. In other words, you'd type on it, and that you'd make sure that that terminal would transmit that data right. And probably 300 baud modem or less. Very, very archaic. And let me turn that. That's a little bit better light. But that was my first entry into the computers and a calculator back then. I remember getting a calculator, and it was just like an 8-function calculator, something that you can pick up for $1 right now or nothing. Would cost, I want to say, about $125. And $125 in 1969, here's where you got to, a good wage back then was $3.29 an hour. So you're making $120 a week. So you're talking about it would take to get a calculator that was just an eight key function calculator, like everybody has thrown around all over their house or whatever nowadays. It would take you a week's salary to buy that back then, just to get the computing power. Isn't that right, Barbara?
That's right.
My wife just walked in because
That's why they taught us how to use a slide rule.
yeah, that's why they did. That's why we had a slide rule. And people go, what in the heck is a slide rule? That was our calculator back then, and I had a slide rule too. I was one of the nerdy kids with a slide rule. And oh man, that light is bothering me. I might have to get my lights out here. But yeah, that's the differences in the technology back then. And then we didn't get our first computer. Yeah, that's right. You probably have thrown away some of those calculators. It took me a week's worth of salary to get. Like I said, they were probably $125. Isn't that about what it was, Barbara? And back then that would have been the equivalent of an entire week's salary. So if you put that into perspective, of the average salary now is probably $1,200 a week now. So you would be, through inflation and everything else, it would be about throwing away $1,200 in today's terms to get that almost nothing calculator. So it's technology has really changed. And then I remember when we got our first fairly good sized business computer, and it had an 8-inch floppy disk. Yeah, that's exactly right. Like throwing away your car scanner or something. That's the difference in the technology. And you talking about car scanners and everything else. I know everybody remembers seeing, gosh, I even have one of them up here in my shop. The old scanners and everything that they used to check cars out with. I'm trying to think the name of it now. Sun, one of the Sun machines. Sun used to come out with, you'd hook the probes up onto the you'd hook up the just like you do a timing gear, timing chain or timing light. You'd hook that up onto your car, and it would come up with a diagnostic screen and everything else. And I remember those machines. When I first saw those, gosh, they were up into thousands of dollars. I mean, like, oh gosh, I want to say, $10,000. Some of those machines, pretty expensive machines. And I bought one at an auction about a year or so ago. The great big Sun machine. Nobody wanted it. I picked it up for $3, I think. $3. And I took it home and I stripped it because it actually, I'm a junkie for parts and everything. It had all the boards, computer boards and everything inside of it. It had the oscillator and, the oscilloscope and just all kinds of stuff. And I said, well, I'm going to junk it out. I'll take the parts. And actually I took those that machine that I bought for $3, probably, it had to have cost somebody probably $10,000 because it had a lot of boards in it. And it was something else. But that's how far technology has come. It's amazing what we've got now. And like I said, now we've got a handheld scanner that will scan everything within your computer and everything else. And, you got maybe a good one, maybe $1,000 in it or whatever. And you can read all the codes, make the corrections, check all your sensors. And of course that works in conjunction with the ECM that's built into the vehicle, which changes things too, because you think about a car in the 70s didn't have an ECM in it. I don't think the ECMs even, I remember they were first getting the modules coming out. I worked at the Ford dealership that I own now, the building. When I was working there back in, what was that, 1980, it was in a situation where we were having a lot of issues with those computer modules that set over on the firewall. I remember we used to sell those things right and left, and because that's what the mechanic come up. Yep, the module's bad. Just unplug it, put a new one in, boom, put the person on the road, and then that module would cost them, oh God, $300 or $400 at the time. So it was an expensive venture for the customer. But that's usually what it was. We'd have a module failure and the car wouldn't run. So, and then now the ECMs that are built onto there are a lot more sophisticated. Those modules back there then only did just a few things because, you still had carburetors, you still had the same advance and everything on the distributor and all that sort of stuff. But they did not do the things that the ECMs do. I guess you would call that was an old ECM type back then, but it wasn't anywhere in the same category of the ECMs that you've got today. Yeah. There's a lot of ones I'm talking about. If you look at an old '78 Ford pickup or anywhere, I'm trying to think when they quit putting those modules over on the fire. They always used to have them right on the firewall, not firewall, I guess right over the fender skirt type thing, right on the inside of, I guess it would be the firewall of the left side of the motor. That's where the Fords used to be all the time. If JC was in here, he could probably tell me, because I know JC's probably worked on a gazillion of them. But that's where the old 78, 79, 80s, 81s, I know that's what they had. And like I said, I don't know when they quit I didn't keep up with it. So I don't know when they quit using that. Yeah. Oh, even the fuel injector. Well, I guess what they did, they increased the capabilities of that module, and that was probably the ECM that they used for a number of years. And it was to Ford's thing. I liked where it was because it was easy to get to. Oh, does it? Your 86 has that, and it was real easy to get to. So if you had an issue, it wasn't like it was going to take a lot of work to get to it. I mean, some of these modules and computers and everything else, they stick them in places, and you go, "Oh my God, you got to tear half the car apart to get to it." So, and even our big trucks, some of those are inconveniently put in places. They're put in a place that's convenient for the manufacturer, but not convenient for the mechanic that has to work on it. I mean, most of ours are over on the left side, and on the Detroits, they're usually on the 60 series. They're on the left side of the motor, and even the cats too. The Caterpillars are like that too. But uh, yeah, it changes. I think it take your odometer back, but I think I don't know. It depends on how it's flashed on the mileage. Comfortable man. I'm not certain on that. I don't get involved with that on the ECMs too much. Yeah, yeah, it's convenient for the guy that's getting paid by the hour. Yeah, but I always liked it. Well, it no longer shows the miles on the vehicle. I thought you can flash it if you. I think you can flash it to retain the memory and everything of your old ECM, can't you? I've seen my guys copy off the programming off of on if the ECM is not totally destroyed and they can get to the what they call the EEPROM of it, I think they can take the EEPROM information and put that on the new one, and then it recovers everything. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not one that works on that part. So I can't attest to that one way or the other. I know we have flashed like I said, taken the info off of the EEPROM. I believe that's right. And then from the EEPROM, it's reading the old data basically off of the other ECM or however it's set up, so you can have the same parameters. Because I know that's what we've tried to do, and I know the guy that does that for me, that's what he does. I mean, he takes his laptop and he copies that, and then he's able to put that back, to the specs that truck was in. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like I said, if they didn't, I guess if you just tried to get it and didn't have, no, no, I haven't opened up over to Napa Store yet. We're still trying to make room over the Napa Store. We have got so much in parts. We got like a $750,000 investment on just parts. I mean, our store is full right now. I mean, all the showroom, all the display, all the old parts room, and part of the garage is used up for parts right now. And what we're going to have to do some remodeling and a few other things over there before we can open up a Napa service center. I mean, I'm already confirmed, and I'm already in there as a Napa service center, and we already have all of our documentation. It's just the fact that I haven't had the room and the time and haven't done it. Yeah, it's parts take up a lot of money. I will tell you that. Yeah, we've had a huge investment into the store because I mean it takes it to run a average, even a small town like mine, to run a decent parts store. You need $1 million worth of inventory. I'll tell you that. It takes $1 million worth of inventory because, I mean, think about it. I mean, you think of all the different water pumps we have to carry, all the different alternators we have to carry, all the different brake shoes, filters, starters, radiators, condensers. It just goes on and on and on. You think about every single one of those. When you come into the store, you want us to have that part that day. You don't want us to say, oh, we can order and get it from the warehouse. You want it right then. So, and in order for us to be successful, we need it on hand. And for us to have it on hand, we've got a lot of inventory. And that's the thing that happens with us on this. I mean, I knew that going in. Okay, I'm just trying to read some of the. It's big money, but I mean, it is what it is, and I knew that's what I was getting into when I bought this, and it's just you just grin and bear it. You get funded for it, and then you just pay the bill, and that's what we do. I mean, if I want to maintain the status as a good store, I'm going to have to do that. Now, of course, my goal is to pay it down, because we're, like I said, we're on what they call a floor plan, you might say. We're backed by Napa, and we're able to. Napa guarantees the inventory, and everything's secured off of the inventory, and that. And of course, you got to have your credit in line and a lot of other things like that. Of course, my investment. I mean, I own the store, and I own the. They went through all the before we did all this. They went through all my financials and everything. They want to make sure that I'm financially capable of paying it all back. I mean, they're not just going to loan somebody, $750,000 worth of inventory just because they like us. That's not going to happen. I mean, they really critique you and everything. I am not knowledgeable on the brake system, so I am not a mechanic and everything. So I can't tell you. I mean, I know enough to be dangerous, but am I a mechanic and can tell you anything about a brake system? No, I can't. Now my mechanics can, but I can't. I mean, I'm the boss. I'm the owner. I know parts and I know about parts, but am I a knowledgeable mechanic? No, I am not. I'm knowledgeable to a degree. I'm knowledgeable as far as heavy equipment. When it comes down to medium-sized trucks and cars, I'm limited. I don't feel like I get fooled about it, but I don't. I am not a repairman myself. I have never been a mechanic. I've never been a licensed mechanic myself. So I own trucks, and I've been a truck driver, and I own the parts store, and I do a variety of other things, but I've never actually been a mechanic. Don't profess to be. JC now is a mechanic. JC has learned from, he's torn things apart from top to bottom. I mean, I've been involved with a lot of things as the things go on, and I've overseen a lot of things. But as far as actually making a knowledgeable decision on certain things, I am not that guy. Now, like I said, I feel like I have a good working knowledge on a lot of things, or I guess you might say I know a lot about a lot of different things, but I'm not a master of any of those things, you might say. Well, I will, because I used to sell these things. What you're in against on some of these things is they will sell you they've got trucks that will meet the minimum, and of course they've got the trucks that'll meet the maximum. I mean, the type vehicle you're talking about probably met the minimum amount of what's allowed by the government. I mean, they're not going to let anybody sell anything as far as the GVW and everything else. To give you, for instance, everybody and his brother has probably seen the guy that has loaded a pickup truck way beyond the max, and his springs are flattened out. He's got it dragging the ground. He looks like it's going to tear it up. But if you were to look at the manufacturer's specs on that truck, it was probably a half-ton pickup, and it wasn't supposed to carry any more than passengers and a few light groceries or something. But so many people will get out there and just max it to the nth degree. I mean, I'll give you, for instance, I always think it's humorous. We've got guys that I'm privy. I got a friend that has a place that he sells me straw. Well, pine needle straw, pine straw, what they call it up here, or pine needles, and they bale it up. And we've gone down to Georgia several times and gotten that. And most of the guys are Mexicans that will harvest that. And it always surprised me to death. You'll see the Mexicans down there, and they've got a half-ton pickup, and they will have it loaded out in the fields or out in the pine, in between the pine trees and everything. They will come back, and they have it stacked so high, and the tailgate is, like I said, that truck is dragging the ground. They have it stacked, 10 times higher than I would have it stacked. And how it even stays on there, it always blows my mind. I've never yet seen one flip over a load, but I've always wondered how they didn't flip it over, because they have the young kids on there piled up there, and they'll have that, like I said, just terribly high. And that's what you get into with some of these trucks. Sometimes you have people, and I know most everybody's seen it. Like I said, you'll see the guy in his old pickup trucks just dragging ground. I mean, the front end's up high and the tail end's down low, because he has flattened out those springs, and he has overmaxed everything. And his brakes, his springs, everything, he's taken it to the nth degree. But the manufacturers, to get regulations, to get within the regulations, I mean, they can sell you a pickup truck that, like I said, that will do the minimum, not the maximum, but the minimum amount of allowable specs on it. And basically, it's a glorified car. Some of them are. I mean, look at your SUVs and my son has one of those sports track. Now, it's not a pickup truck per se, what I call it. And of course, I sold him my F-250, which is a good pickup truck. And the brakes are adequate on it and everything else. But you get into some of these that they're just not spec'd right. And if you want to spec them out right, you have to make sure and do that yourself. Make sure that your towing capacity is right. Make sure that your brake system's right. I mean, that's up to you to do that. And I know everybody's seen the guys pulling the campers. I see guys pulling campers with half-ton pickups, and that camper is probably twice the size that it should be. Can you hitch it up? Yeah, you can hitch it up. Will it pull it? Yeah, it'll pull it. But is it going to tear up that pickup truck? You better believe it. And that's what you get into sometimes. You get into the people that just won't match up, word for word what it's supposed to do. Well, I mean, but you're talking to 1500s. Well, going up to the others, you jump to a bigger size. You don't stay at a 1500, you go to a 35. That's what you're getting at. I mean, you can't make a 1500 do more than a 1500 is supposed to do. I mean, if you want a bigger truck than a 1500, going up to the 3500s, don't Well, I mean, I've got a 3500 series, and my brake system seems to be very adequate on it. I mean, I mean, I've got a Dodge Dually, and I've never had an issue with it. I don't know exactly what your problems you're having with it, but I mean, when you're saying they're not adequate for stop, or I mean, how much are you trying to load onto it? So you're saying that the maximum their towing capacity, if you take it all the way to that, well, I mean, whatever you're towing needs to make sure you got the adequate amount of brakes on it too. Yeah, I mean, you've got to have a brake controller on your trailer. I mean, if not, you're going to have the uh, tail wagging the dog type situation. I mean, you're never. I mean, I would never pull a trailer that I've got, even with the biggest brake system I got on my tractor trailers. Uh, you know, okay, Jesse, how do I become as successful as you? Age. I'm old, uh, and I stuck with everything. Okay, your fifth wheel weighs almost 10K. Well, I'd say you're probably, if your fifth wheel trailer, it's probably got your brake problem's probably worse on it than it is the Dodge or the whatever, because uh, I mean, you've got to have adequate brakes on your trailer. I mean, I wouldn't. I mean, I have had trailers even with my tractor trailer trucks that come. Uh, that's the scariest thing we do. If we have trailer brakes that are out of adjustment or inadequate, or bad brakes on the trailers, that's a scary situation. I mean, I don't want to pull anything that does not have good trailer brakes. Well, it may be. I mean, I don't know your situation, but I would definitely. I mean, I have never had an issue. Now I pull my skid steer. I pull my I got a Traco. I got a skid steer, a tool cat, and several other big pieces of equipment that I pull with my fifth wheel trailer on my Dodge Dually, and I've never had an issue with it. But I mean, I don't have an issue with the trailer. I gotta, you gotta have enough trailer to, as long as the electric brakes are good on it. If you use an electric, then I've never had an issue. I mean, I usually have mine set good enough so if I tap the brakes, that trailer is going to start locking down before I ever, uh, before it affects my truck brakes. I mean, that's the way I do it anyway, because I don't want my I don't want that thing jackknifing on me. I don't want to hit the brakes on that truck and that trailer wants to come around on you. That's the worst thing. That's one of the worst feelings you can ever have. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about it. I mean, you may have too much trailer for the 1500, and but I mean, I've never had an issue with my 3500 that dually that I've got. It's got the Cummins diesel in it, and I've got, like I said, I've got the towing packages normal for it. It's nothing exceptional, but I mean, all my trailers that I have for it, I make sure that the trailers are adequate. I mean, I think part of it has to do with your trailer. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the situation. I haven't seen, a picture of what you're trying to do, and I'm just trying to picture in my mind. I don't know what are you pulling with it. I mean, what are you hauling with on the trailer? Is this a utility trailer that you're? You mean just the fifth wheel trailer? Is that like a camper trailer, or is that are you pulling utility? I mean, I've had both with mine. I used to have a fifth wheel camper. Yes, on what? Just the camper a camper trailer. I mean, if you're pulling a fifth wheel camper trailer, I mean, the one that I had, I mean, I just made sure that I had good. I pulled mine with I had an F-250, and then I pulled it with my Dodge Dually also. And because I liked it better with the Dodge Dually, I liked it because I wanted that. Okay, 30-foot camper. Well, that's a pretty good bit for a 1500, isn't it? I in my opinion, I would rather have a 3500 if I got a 30-foot trailer, because I mean, what's the weight on that camper? I mean, that's pretty good bit. Mine was a 27-foot. I had a 27-footer, and my F-250, which is bigger than a 1500. I understand what you're saying, what it's rated for. Yeah, yeah. What they're rated for? I mean, of course, I guess I look at it differently. I would rather oversize what I'm pulling certain things with. I don't want to have the minimum amount of truck. I mean, a 1500 is a decent truck, but I've never considered them one that I'd want to pull a fifth wheel trailer with. I mean, that's just my opinion. Yeah, I mean, I would rather. Yeah, I always try to oversize certain things. I don't. I've never been one that wanted to get by on the bare minimum of that, and really, I've never been one that liked to see pickup trucks pulling large campers. I mean, I see it all the time, but I think I just myself personally, I wouldn't want to do that. I want to. When I if I ever pull a fifth wheel trailer, I mean, I know a lot of people probably argue, say, "Oh, you can pull it with a 250 or whatever." I had a 250, and I didn't like it with a 250 as much as I did my dually. My dually, it felt way more stable with it. I mean, I just that's just my own personal opinion. I just feel like when you get into those 27 to 30-foot trailers, and uh, you're hauling a good bit of weight. I mean, it might be a 9,700 pound empty. Just stock. You start loading everything in there, all your clothes and everything else that you're going to throw in there, and the dog and whatever you got in that trailer. By the time you look at it, you probably got 11,000 pounds in it. By the time you load it up with everything, I would imagine it's just bare 9,700 pounds. But there again, we try to. I see too many of these travel trailers that they try to minimize what their capabilities are too. They're always. I've seen them out there. They go to the lightweight camper trailers, and they're trying to make them lighter and lighter. And to me, that means this less and less stability too. I like something to be strong. I've seen a ton of in my travels. I've seen a ton of campers torn all to pieces. I've seen a ton of trucks and campers torn all to pieces because of the fact that people get out into a situation where they get a high wind situation with a camper and it flip everything over. I look at it differently. I know everybody wants to do their own thing and have their own recreational time, but and that's one reason my wife made me sell the camper. She wasn't big into RV, and I had it for about 5 or 6 years. And the old saying that about boats and campers and everything else, there's 2 happy days when you get a boat and a camper: the day you buy it and the day you sell it. So the day we got rid of it, we were happy because we didn't need it. Well, how are you, Brent, in Florida? I'm glad to see you in here. And but Yeah, yeah, yeah. 1,700 miles in a camper, that would be a tough one. I mean, if I hit the big one and I can go out and buy me some real nice rig, I might do it again. But I don't know if I. My wife says no. Uh, we're getting ready to do a pretty good lengthy trip this next year, but we're not going to do it camping wise. She wants to. She would rather just go to a hotel and stay stable and everything. And of course, I hate to have to drag stuff in and out of hotels, but that's probably what we'll be doing going across country this next year. And that's it's got its good points and its bad points, but that's life. I mean, we'll be checking it all out. I'm gonna have to go through Kansas. I told my wife, I said, I got to go through Dodge City. I got to see Chris out there. So on my way out west to Vegas, I'm gonna have to make sure and swing through Dodge City and see Chris and Ricky. I guess Ricky would be out there too. But we're wanting to do that, and yeah, yeah. No, I'm not going to get her a Prevost. Prevost that gets 6 miles of the gallon. I had some friends they had one of these a beach band, and they drove a Prevost for years and had the band and everything, and that they wore out a couple of Prevost traveling all over, and it's just one of those things. I guess if I were to go like that again, I would probably get one of the M series Freightliner with the Detroit in it. It's got it's like a dually, and pull a nice camper behind it. That I don't think I would want to be tied down. I mean, if you're out camping or something, you're pulling at something. I would rather give me a nice travel trailer and a nice motor coach and everything, and do it that way. I mean, not motor coach, but a good power unit. And that way, if you got where you were, you could stop off with the trailer and then leave and go somewhere in the truck part you wanted to, and not feel like it'd be like a big SUV then at that point. I mean, that's the way I would probably do it. Yeah, I used to drive those Bluebird buses when I was back in high school. We had Bluebirds and Thomas built buses. Bluebird and Thomas both were actually built in this area. Thomas built buses were built in Thomasville, North Carolina. North Carolina used to be big into the bus situation. I think Bluebird, I can't remember exactly where they were built. They were somewhere around either North or South Carolina, I believe. But the Thomas built buses that most people, a lot of kids, a lot of y'all probably ridden in the Thomas buses. But you'd see it as a Thomas built buses, and they were built in Thomasville, North Carolina. Well, the plant's still there, I think. It's not too far from the Freightliner division, and they use a lot of Freightliner running gears too. Yeah, yeah. I did my little bit of camping and everything, and I don't. Yeah, yeah. A lot of them had those. Whereas when I came up, they didn't have they were all gas. They didn't have any diesels. Yeah, you were in the big time. You had those Cummins diesels in them and everything. The ones I came up with, like I said, we had gas. I was a school bus driver myself, and in high school, that's what we used to be able to do. And I had a 318 Dodge motor. I had a Dodge bus, and I loved it because it was the only V8 in the entire fleet at my high school. It was a 58 Dodge. It was one of the oldest ones, but I loved it because it would go. I mean, it would fly. It would do 36 miles an hour instead of 35. When those little 6-cylinder buses get to bogging down, I could pass them. And I guess y'all might have seen my border collie flying behind me there. Yeah, I see my border collies back there behind me. They're running down to the pond. They fly. Yeah, so you're gonna get a what they call a toy hauler. If you're gonna get a fifth wheel with a little garage behind, that's usually what they call, I believe, a toy hauler. Yeah, that's all we had back then was the manual. I had a 5-speed transmission. I had a 5-speed transmission on that Dodge, and that was the other thing too. I had a 5-speed, and all the other buses had a 4-speed. And I was cool. I had a 5-speed transmission behind a 318 V8, and I thought I was something with that. But it was different. It was fun. It was fun to drive back then. Yeah, I had well, it wasn't so much an overdrive. It was I had a granny. I had a granny and then the regular 4. I basically just used the 4 all the time. So it was that was the old deal. I had a granny gear in it, which nowadays they don't put that in cars and trucks as much. But back then they did. I had a reverse and then a granny and then a regular 4 pattern. But it was cool. I mean, in today's term, they'll have a 5th or 6th gear and have an overdrive and everything. But back then, they just wanted me to get from point A to point B. They weren't worried about the economy of it. Like I said, it was the only V8 in the fleet, and we had some areas where you could be side by side. And I remember, and I got called in one time for passing another school bus. I wasn't supposed to do that. No, you're not supposed to pass buses. And I said, okay, I'm sorry. They didn't reprimand me too much, but I did get called in for passing the other school bus. He was going real slow up a hill, and I just fell out and passed him. And principal got word of it and called me in. But I didn't do anything totally wrong, so I didn't get. They didn't pull my bus driver's license. It's pretty good, yeah, all that sort of stuff. Well, guys, I'm gonna get off of here. I've enjoyed it this morning. I've talked about as much as I got to save my voice from a radio show. Remember, if you want to hear me, of course, last week we were off the air on the broadcast as far as worldwide because the internet was down. I don't know if any of y'all tried to get on it, but ktcbroadcasting.com. Let me type it in here. Let me see if I can get in here and type it in. Check me out. That'd be my Cruising in the Carolinas with Mike. Oops, let me spell it right. And that's the you can tune on that Tuesday mornings between 10 and 12, and that's my radio show I do each week. So if you're into doing that, you want to listen to some oldies, tune in, and you'll hear me on ktcbroadcasting.com, and I'm spinning the old records and everything and doing my thing. And I'll see you next week.